State tournament time here in Iowa, and on the map we see the 16 title contenders as the tournament began. In the first round, 8 teams were eliminated: Knoxville, Wyoto, Holstein, Farragut, Melvin, Guthrie Center, Sloan, and Loudon. In the quarterfinal round, defeat came to Sheridan, Moravia, Sperry, and Winterset. In the semifinal round, 2 teams eliminated: Steamboat Rock and Deep River, leaving the finalists Monona and Hansell, with Hansell the 1951 state champ. This is Bill Riley, your state tournament public address announcer for the past 4 years, to present pictorial highlights of the 1951 state tournament. This indeed was a historic tournament. For the first time, television cameras from station WOI in Ames carried the thrills and excitement of the girls' tournament into thousands of homes throughout the state. A popular and colorful feature of every girls' state tournament, the Parade of Champions. And here Sheridan from Greene County, and now Farragut from Fremont County passing in review. From Guthrie County, the girls from Guthrie Center, as the Parade of Champions continues. Holstein, now passing in review. From Ida County, the girls from Holstein. Always great competitors. From Marion County, the team from Knoxville. And passing in review, from Cedar County, the girls' team from Loudon. Now from Osceola County, with 21 wins, 2 losses, Melvin. From Appanoose County, a great team from Moravia, as the Parade of Champions continues. A Woodbury County representative, the girls from Sloan. From Des Moines County, a great team from Sperry. Always great competitors. Madison County's representative, Winterset. From Cass County, the girls from Wyoto. And now the semifinalists from Hardin County, Steamboat Rock. And from Poweshiek, Deep River. Yes, the Parade of Champions, the 14 teams eliminated in competition to the final round. And now the game of games, the 1951 state championship game, being introduced to the 25 wins and 2 losses for the season, coached by George Peterson. Hansell from Franklin County, with 25 wins, 5 losses, coached by Bill Maley. And now you can see the great crowd that packed Drake Fieldhouse for this final game. Packed to the rafters, as it was throughout the tournament. Now we see the co-captains of each team getting last-minute instructions from the tournament officials. Betty Beckerman of Des Moines and Gordon Rum of Cedar Falls. The bench official was Mel Walker of Ottumwa. Action begins in the first quarter of play. So let's check the starting lineups now for the game as we see first quarter action. Starting the game for Monona, at forwards, Joanne Bloomhagen, number 5, Dorothy Hubacher, number 35, and the 6'4" scoring sensation Norma Schulte, number 13. That's the starting lineup for Monona at forward. For Monona at guard, Elaine Dran, number 2, Nancy Redasel, number 15, and Carol Gilbert, number 4. Starting the ball game for Hansell, at forwards, Shirley Thompson, number 44, Mary Harper, number 11, Alberta Van Dyke, number 20. Starting guards for Hansell, Janice Fowler, number 22, Helen Wilkinson, number 33, and Evelyn Rust, number 55. Now let's view the action in this first quarter of play as the seconds tick away. As was the case in every tournament game, the Hansell girls had trouble getting started. They just couldn't hit that basket to start things off. Van Dyke trying for the pivot shots, unable to make them, always passing back out to Thompson and Harper as the girls tried to work the ball in. The Hansell girls, of course, in the white uniforms, now in control of the ball, with Monona taking over and working the ball down court. It was the opposite case with Monona. In the opening seconds of play, Monona girls, the out shooters, Hubacher and Bloomhagen, managed to rack up a 12-2 advantage over Hansell. 12-2 in the early seconds of play. Now, let's have some close-up action as we watch the Monona girls work the ball in under their own basket. Number 35, Hubacher, and of course always passing in to the great pivot, Norma Schulte. Great crowd in attendance and two great teams fighting for the 1951 state championship. Hansell in the white uniforms again trying to move the ball in for a basket. Mary Harper occasionally shooting the long ones and making them, but still Monona in control of the ball and the ball game in that first quarter of play. However, the tide was to turn as the game progressed. But the thousands of fans jammed in Drake Fieldhouse at the first quarter thought it was Monona's ball game, because the Monona girls had control of the game in that first quarter of play. Officiating, as always, excellent in the tournament, and competition keen, sportsmanship fine. Hansell in control of the ball, working it into the pivot, Alberta Van Dyke. Right back at him, Monona with the ball, and the Monona technique with the Hansell guards doing an excellent job of guarding. The Monona technique was to shoot the long ones from out, with Joanne Bloomhagen and Dorothy Hubacher, the ones that were shooting the long shots. This 1951 state tournament was the greatest in history, attendance-wise, with 42,500 attending, with all but 2 sessions providing turnaway crowds. And we're still watching, of course, action in the first quarter of play. In the consolation round, Steamboat Rock defeated Deep River 65-58. So third place in the state went to Steamboat Rock, fourth place to Deep River. Well, the first quarter progressed with both teams fighting, and Hansell finally finding their eye, at least partially, after trailing. And it was 22-12, Monona, at the end of the first quarter. Now let's join the girls again in the second quarter of tournament play. In this second quarter, of course, the nervousness of the first quarter was wearing off. The girls were beginning to get those basket eyes, and the basket by Mary Harper, the spark plug of the Hansell team. Monona in control of the ball in the forward court now, and the great guard work by Hansell was beginning to take its toll. And in this second quarter, little Mary Harper scored 6 consecutive baskets to place the Hansell girls very definitely back in the running. Throughout the game now, we would like to have you watch the effective work of the Hansell guards. As a matter of fact, most of the Monona shots were forced from out deep in the court. Excellent work by the Hansell guards, and a lot of fight and fire on the floor as the girls fought for the ball. And mentioning again, it was Mary Harper who sparked the girls in the opening phases of the second quarter. Monona getting a talk from their coach, and Bill Maley speaking to the Hansell girls, telling them just what to do. And now notice the score, 23-22. 23-22 with Monona leading. And at the first quarter, it was 22-12. So you see what happened. Hansell came back strong. And now in the second quarter action, about midway in this second quarter, the action was tremendous as the girls battled back and forth to get an advantage and hold it, with the score virtually tied back and forth, with each team leading for just a few seconds, then the other team coming back to score. Free throws were counting in this particular part of the ball game, as they do in every ball game. Monona was not out of the game in this second quarter. However, late in the second quarter, the relentless attack paced by little Mary Harper and the great pivot work of Van Dyke and the long shots by Shirley Thompson gradually pulled the Hansell girls ahead. But Monona not out of the game at all, and were still fighting as the quarter moved along. And so, in the 19th state tournament, we found Hansell moving up strong in this second quarter action. Let's continue to follow action now in the second period of play as the Hansell girls begin to pull ahead. Here is now close-up action under the Monona basket. Please note the way the Hansell girls completely tie up this great forward Schulte. The Hansell girls turned in a great defensive ball game as well as scoring lots of points. Paced by the little spark plug Mary Harper. She sparked the team, was the playmaker for Hansell. Monona girls never gave up. They were always in there with Schulte, always firing away and trying to get the ball away from the scrappy Hansell guards. But as always throughout the game, first, second, and throughout the remainder of the game, it was the Hansell guards getting hold of that ball, and then the Hansell girls in the forward court scoring those very vital points. Now close-up action again as we see the girls in the forward court for Monona. Number 5, Joanne Bloomhagen, and 35, Dorothy Hubacher trying to get the ball in to their great pivot, Schulte. But again, the same pattern. The rebound by Hansell, and the ball up court to the Hansell forwards, where Alberta Van Dyke and Thompson and Harper worked it back and forth, always working towards the basket with a lot of fight and a lot of fire. It was in this particular part of the game, after being very close, that Van Dyke began finding her eye, paced by Harper also, and gradually the Hansell girls began to pull ahead. You will recall, at the end of the first period, it was Monona 22, Hansell 12. But the baskets were continuing to be made by Hansell, and gradually the Hansell girls pulled ahead in this second period of play. And the clock ticked the seconds away as this great crowd jammed Drake Fieldhouse, roared its approval of the Queens of 1951 basketball in Iowa. Action completed. At the end of the first quarter, the score had changed considerably. At the halftime, Hansell 40, Monona 30. Here at the halftime intermission, receiving her award from M.O. Moe, director of the Girls Athletic Union, is the 1951 state free throw champion, sophomore Ruth Swanson from Washita. Ruth hit an amazing 32 of 35 free throws to win the title over a field of 32. In the background, Bert McGrain of the Des Moines Register and Tribune, directors of the Girls High School Athletic Union, Rod Chisholm, O.H. Rutenbeck, John King, Lovell Diddy, and the governor of the state of Iowa, Governor William S. Beardsley. At the right, Harry Burrell of WOI-TV. And Ruth Swanson from Washita, the free throw champion. Let's resume action now, ready for the second half of the 1951 state championship game. A halftime that was to produce the 51 champion, the Queens, for 1951. And recalling the first quarter score, 22-12, with the Hansell girls trailing by 10 points, and the halftime score, 40-30, with the Hansell girls leading by 10 points. And so beginning the action now, in this third quarter, it was Hansell in complete control of the game. With great credit due to the exceptional guarding of Hansell's Evelyn Rust and the other Hansell guards, namely Ellen Wilkinson and Janice Fowler, who turned in creditable guard jobs. And there are the guards working, as they did so effectively, for Hansell throughout the game. Now, these Hansell guards completely shackled Schulte. They just kept her from scoring in this third period quite effectively. But as we always say, the Monona team, oh, they never were out of the ball game completely. They always were a tremendous threat, and they kept firing away constantly. Number 5, Joanne Blumhagen, and Dorothy Hubacher scoring from out. But the great problem was Norma Schulte. They could not get the ball in to the great Norma Schulte, who established a tremendous pace in the opening tournament games, but in the last game could not find the eye. Now we're watching Monona in close-up action in their forward court, with the shot being made by Blumhagen. And again trying to work the ball in, always, but notice the guards effectively working against Schulte. And her shots, of course, were always blocked and well blocked by the guards for Hansell. But the Hansell girls in the forward court had troubles too. These Monona guards always plenty rough, forcing Harper and Thompson to shoot from far out as the third period moved along. And play continued with Hansell in complete control of the game. In this third period of play, the Hansell girls outscored Monona by an 18-12 advantage. So obviously in the first quarter of play, Monona held a tremendous advantage. In the second quarter, it was Hansell's quarter. The third quarter, fairly even, with Hansell eking out the edge. 58-42. 58-42, the final score at the end of the third period of play, a 16-point advantage at the end of 3 periods. And now, the last quarter in this ball game, the 1951 state championship game. Hansell and Monona. Hansell leading by a very large 16 points. Can Monona cut this lead down? That's the great question now, and it's going to be a battle and a long, hard fight, because Van Dyke immediately scoring to start the fourth period. Monona fighting under the basket there. Again, you see 3 guards on Schulte. 2 and 3 guards on Schulte. However, Schulte, with the true fire of a great competitor, fought back in this fourth period. The entire Monona team staged a rally in the final minutes of the fourth period, but not enough to catch Van Dyke and the Hansell team. It was in the second half that Alberta Van Dyke really found her scoring eye in the pivot post. There we see Schulte again scoring, however, for the Monona team. And this was it. This was the fourth period, with Monona trailing, the fighting Hansell crew, and the work under the baskets became more fierce with every minute as the seconds ticked by. But Mary Harper of Hansell scoring those baskets, and Van Dyke scoring, and the Hansell guards just a little too tough under the basket for the Monona forwards. But the play was very rough and tough. And as you watch the play now in the fourth period, you can see, especially under the basket, where the tension mounts as the guards and forwards battle for position. Pass in to Van Dyke. The basket by Van Dyke. That was the story throughout the final minutes of the game. The pass to Van Dyke, the basket by Van Dyke. The outshooting by the Monona forwards was excellent throughout the game, but not enough. Schulte always fighting under the basket and drawing the fouls as she did throughout the tournament. And the Monona girls again fighting now. As we mentioned many times, in this fourth period, Monona staged a desperate last-minute rally. A rally that was to bring them within a few points of catching the Hansell team. They cut their lead, but they didn't cut it quite enough to bring victory. There's the play, rugged, rough, under the baskets in close-up play as the camera brings us right down the floor. Benny Beckerman, the official there for this jump ball, and we're right now down under that Hansell basket. There's the play again, rough and tough, always fighting for that ball. Yes, the competition was hot and heavy, but when the game was over, they were great friends again, in the true tradition of girls basketball in Iowa, the great, tremendous sport that it is. Mary Harper proving there that she can shoot from either side, the right side or the left side. She demonstrated her abilities so very well in the fourth period and throughout the tournament play. With the crowd virtually unaware of the fact, tremendous drama unfolded during the final minutes of this championship game. With approximately 3 minutes to play, Hansell's Alberta Van Dyke needed only 1 point to tie, 2 points to break the all-time tournament individual scoring record held by Arliss Van Langen, who scored a record of 142 points in the 1946 tournament. However, as the Hansell forwards frantically fed the ball to Van Dyke, she could not score the vital point. And Van Dyke ended the game in the tournament with 141 points for 4 games, 1 point shy of the all-time record. And now we see the final seconds of play in the championship game. A pass into Alberta Van Dyke. She misses that final opportunity to break the record on the last futile attempt to score. And the game is over. The 1951 state champions are Hansell with a 70-59 victory over Monona. 70-59, and the queens of 1951 are the fighting gals from Hansell. The Hansell girls, 70 points, the highest winning team total in history. Hansell, 70, Monona, 59. At the award ceremony, Rod Chisholm, Executive Secretary of the Iowa High School Girls Athletic Union, begins the proceedings, and in the background you see the last year's championship team, the girls from Slater. Mr. Rod Chisholm now introducing Mr. Lovell Diddy of Missouri, President of the Girls Athletic Union. After the 4th and 3rd place trophies are presented to the Deep River and Steamboat Rock teams, the 2nd place team, a fine team, the 2nd place trophy to Monona. And now the champions, the great 1951 state championship trophy is awarded to Hansell. The Hansell girls, for the 2nd time in the history of the school, bring the trophy back to the town in Franklin County, Hansell. There they are, the 1951 champions. And so, as the great crowd slowly leaves Drake Fieldhouse, finish is written to another great chapter in the history of girls basketball, in a tournament which saw record crowds, a tournament which saw great teams, well-coached teams, a tournament which saw good sportsmanship on the part of players and crowds, a tournament which will go down in history as the greatest girls basketball tournament in history.